Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking. I'm the reviews editor of the Barrister magazine, and I'm also a practicing barrister at Richmond Green Chambers. I attended this year's annual bar conference for 2014. The theme was Celebrating Excellence. This is the actual book itself of what happened. You get some information inside, and you get the actual programme and all the other information. Since I wrote the review, a very useful copy of Council magazine has been produced. Nice photographs of all the people speaking, and you've then got inside a most useful statement of everything that took place in quite some detail, with individual comments by the various people who attended some of the sessions. Now, what I've produced for the Law Society journals primarily is a basic personal view, if you like, of what happened at the conference itself. The main speech at the beginning was by our current chairman. That's a copy of his speech. That's Nicholas Lavender, Queen's Counsel. But there were some very interesting comments and speeches given, and the breakout sessions were also very interesting. So what I'm going to do is explain what I thought happened, because I think everybody who's involved in the work of the bar should attend the annual bar conference. It's certainly a very informative day, and it's not as busy as you would think. As I've said, the theme was Celebrating Excellence, and they certainly did. That's really my view on it. This is what I say. Let's start with the venue. A different one this year, and very pleasant. The Westminster Park Plaza in London is new and spacious, offering a most international feel for visitors. The conference took place in the basement areas and held the usual mix of formal keynote speeches and breakout sessions. So you've got a standard structure for the day. A tip for the newer barrister is to go to the early bird session, which starts around 8:15 in the morning. A bit early, I know. But it was very well attended again, as usual, even for that hour of the day. And the subject was pro bono assistance. Quite often the first topic of the day for this conference. You get more CPD points, I believe, if you need them for this session, but you must remember now to log and sign for each of the sessions you go to collect the hours if that's what you want. Not necessarily the purpose behind going to this conference, because it's much bigger than that. With any conference review, it's a matter of selection from a vast collection of different things which are going on. So I'm going to pick some highlights. From the early bird session, I was particularly impressed with the comments made by a number of members of the judiciary, one of whom mentioned the introduction of a Mackenzie Friend form, which is now to be completed in some county courts. It's news to me. I hope this policy is extended, because I do know that there are some concerns about the availability and use of Mackenzie Friends, and so therefore it's useful for the judiciary and the parties involved to know exactly who is doing what. Such a snippet of information, I think, was one of many that made the day particularly useful, especially to those in the practice areas which are currently experiencing particularly sensitive issues, such as the number of people who are appearing as litigants in person, and that in fact was the start of the day. And that theme did crop up a number of times, because we are aware, and of course in Council magazine it's mentioned, we are aware of the problems that is causing the courts. The conference was opened admirably by Richard Atkins QC, who set the tone for the day, highlighting individual sessions. He was the conference chairman. The theme was Celebrating Excellence, and who better to do that than our own Bar Council chairman, Nicholas Lavender, Queen's Counsel. It's very much the sort of speech we wanted to hear because of what he covered. Now, I'm not going to go into detail, because the speech is available if you want to have a look at it, and do have a look at the Bar Council website for the full content. He did in fact start off, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud of the bar. I am proud to be a barrister. I hope that you are as well." So you get some idea of the theme that he then developed. it's, as I say, very much what we wanted to hear, and the potted version of the 9-page speech is also available, I understand, on the web. But the theme really was the bar as it is today. And then we came to the keynote speech from Lord Hughes, and you can see Lord Hughes. Let me just point him out so you know who these people are. That's Nicholas Lavender, and there is Lord Hughes down there on the side there. Now, Lord Hughes was very interesting. He's a member of the Supreme Court, Lord Hughes of Ombersley. Very nice guy. You can't read his speech, unfortunately, because it's not available in a written form. So what I did is noted some highlights of what he said in what I thought was a most thought-provoking and interesting set of points. As has been said before, attendance at a bar conference is actually a highlight of the legal year, just so you can hear the most senior lawyers tell us what we actually want to hear, warts and all, and that we are good. Hughes began by addressing the theme that this conference is about you. Yes, and then he gave some examples of how the true legal professional brings independent expertise and self-imposed discipline to the work that we do. Then he moved on, discussing how much reliance is actually placed on the work of the advocate. For instance, we, the advocates, will ask, who is the judge? But we don't really think that the judge will ask, who is it who's in it, i.e. counsel, as though we might have forgotten the two-way street we walk on. Now, I remember this from some marshalling I did during pupillage, when I realised, sitting with the judges, that they will do their own homework. Sitting with the judges, obviously you get some idea of what it's like as you actually go into court and you actually see members of council in front of you. Obviously it's important, therefore, to get some feel from the way they look at things and the way we look at things. So what happens in the robing room is probably well mirrored in the retiring room, a point which I think would all do well to remember. One point I did like was the possibility that a judge will form a preliminary view, as so often happens, then we come along and we change it. And that was one of the points I thought he very charmingly put forward. Can I mention we were very lucky actually to have both the Attorney General and the Solicitor General present, just purely as observers at the conference, and they're obviously both new in post, so it was useful to have them seeing what we actually get up to at the conference itself. And I also think from the points that were made by both Nicholas Lavender and other speakers, that this mustn't ever be seen as an attack on the way we do things as opposed to the way solicitors act, because I would have thought, in fact, some solicitors would find it quite useful to come to our conference just to see what we get up to, because I think there's still a little bit of a mystique sometimes about what we do as counsel. Anyway, let me move on to those breakout sessions, which they love. Lot of them this time. I visited each session briefly, and there's a detailed statement about each of them in the current issue. This is the December issue of Counsel. But I wanted to get some idea of the support and the interest concerning the subject matter, because there are a lot of people attending. About 500 people, I think, were there in total. The attendances, I thought, were generally very good throughout, although some, of course, were going to be higher than others in terms of interest. The morning sessions covered the following areas. LASPO, 1 year on, very popular. Making use of EU law and domestic courts, again, well attended. Exporting excellence, a workshop for the junior bar. Newer members were well represented, but we do need more conference goers, I think, who've just been called to the bar, because I do think they will get a lot more information and value out of this sort of event. Human rights, of course, very popular. What a surprise, as this continues to remain such a big and controversial issue for all of us. Vulnerable witnesses in the family court. This was, I thought, very good because it was useful content, but a bit narrow possibly for some. Great criminal advocates and what we can learn from them. This was well attended in what was a very large room. I think it was the old ballroom, and it was essential, of course, for members of the criminal bar just to pick up a few nuggets, you know, here and there. The sessions after lunch were not so well attended, as some had clearly left for the big rugby match. But the sessions were all again of very high quality and delivery. The Chamber's pension scheme, combating FGM, that's female genital mutilation. There was a disappointing attendance, I thought, for that, because it's such an important matter, and one that is a bit uncomfortable and not something a lot of people actually are happy to talk about. Then they had the bar mentoring service, conducting litigation, that's another one. Not as many people as I expected attended that, and I would suggest possibly that the jury may still be out as to whether this is a serious starter for some members of the bar. Unlike, of course, the public access scheme, which is a clear success, and over 50% are now participating. Another area, achieving excellence in advocacy at the commercial bar. No, it's not an oxymoron, but actually very good value. Members of the commercial bar, don't take offence, please. The point being that, in fact, these breakout sessions are almost like workshops to some, in that they will give you tips on advocacy if that's what you're looking for, and I certainly saw a bit of that going on. Then we've got mock trials and pre-recorded cross-examination and the question of vulnerable witnesses in the criminal justice system, which, as I say, were both very much hands-on workshops effectively, and again I think they would be very helpful for probably the newer members of the bar of whatever age, because you do need the extra expertise and experience. Finally, there were two what are described as sub-plenary sessions on expert evidence and, quote, thinking outside the box, maximising your potential as a barrister, which probably says it all. By that time, I have to admit that fatigue was beginning to set in a bit. However, I did find it an exhilarating day. Meanwhile, there's a good trip to be had around the exhibitions, which are always enjoyable, and the exhibitors were both friendly and very helpful again this year. All the usual suspects were present, the bookshops and so forth, and I'd like to say that the stalls were extremely informative, which I would expect. The usual publishers, as I say, and other regular exhibitors. And this year I saw that In a Temple exhibited what interested me, because I wasn't quite sure why they were the only Inn of Court there, but they were, because what they were offering is a now quite useful service for potential barristers from their final sort of school years through to students onwards to undergraduate level, looking to seek mini pupilages and find out what we do at the bar. Because any profession, any organisation, you've got the older people and they die off and they go away, and you've always got to bring excellent new people along. You have to have that stream. You can't just stop. You have to actually have a nice stream of people coming through, and I think this is a wonderful step forward, and I hope all four inns will bring this on board. In a Temple set the system up effectively, having a focal point for such interest to help people secure these sorts of opportunities, and I think it seems to be working quite well. And also it probably takes away a little bit of a mystique and a little bit of perhaps misunderstanding about what we actually do. I think the final word must go to Sir Alan Moses. You'll see him up there. He chairs the Independent Press Standards Organisation, having retired from the Court of Appeal. He summed it up really in a great ending when he said, quote, "I hope the public appreciates the need to cherish and cultivate those who seek to provide powerful and independent advocacy." Yes, he's absolutely right. By the way, when you have that slot at the end, people are sort of itching to go and shuffling about a bit. I didn't really get much of that, but I think it's extremely helpful to have a powerful end speaker to round off what was, I think, a really great day. Let me say then, to conclude, the theme of the conference is celebrating excellence. That's what we've got there on the front. Nice lot of programme information if you ever look at it on the back. And it did just that. Thank you, I'd like to say, to all concerned, the staff at the Bar Council, the press office, very helpful people, all the people who made such a big effort to make this a big day, because there's a lot of work that goes into any events. I know I've organised them myself. I hope it was that everybody who attended found it a very informative day. And what I would say is do come next year, because it's worth it. And it's a bit difficult to understand quite what goes on until you've actually been to one of these events. They're not that expensive, and I think they're well worth going. Just to show you again, that's what it looks like. I don't know if there are any other pictures in here, but there are certainly a number of useful points. You've got some more pictures there just to give you some idea of what actually took place. And obviously for those who didn't attend, they've got a copy of counsel. But I'd like to thank everybody concerned. This sort of information is really valuable, so thank you to all. Bye bye.